Alright, you guys, welcome back to Little Man Big Conversations. I'm, of course, Little Man, Little James, aka the Flash Man. Without further ado, here's part 2. So you have the supportive group then at that point to say, yeah, this is all going to be okay, this is normal. They give you the confidence boost to a certain extent, or the professional confidence boost to a certain extent, to go out there and experience burlesque. Coming off stage that first time, after doing a burlesque act, because we spoke about it earlier, about bottling up that feeling and that sensation that you want to sort of share with people, because it is a feeling like none other. What was that vibe like compared to, say, doing the acts of ballet and tap and swing and everything else that you'd experienced, and being a teacher, to now have your first burlesque performance and coming off stage from that? Do you remember what that sensation was like?
It was so liberating.
Yeah.
That would have been the first time I'd been on stage in that less amount of clothing. Okay. I was a bundle of nerves leading up to it. Like, I knew what was going on. I knew all the movements and how to present and all of that. Like, that doesn't go away.
Yeah.
Especially when you've done it for so many years.
Sure, yeah.
But, like, taking most of your kit off on a stage, that was something that was, like, way past my comfort barrier at the time. And, you know, I did it, and then I felt so liberated and so pumped and so much adrenaline that I was like, when do we get to do this again?
Right. So you were hooked straight away.
Yep. Hooked, line, and sinker.
Right.
I think I did another term after that, which was like a fun little tap term that BB taught. And the following term, I started teaching in her burlesque school.
It's teaching tap?
I taught tap. Originally, I was just wanting to teach tap. A couple of the swing dancing girls and boys had asked if I could teach some tap stuff. I didn't really know how to go about insurances and hall bookings and stuff like that. And I was still really new to Brisbane at the time. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying to BB, I'm like, hey, how would I do this thing? And she's like, oh, do you just want to teach under me? And I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do the thing. And, you know, I ended up by taking on beginner burlesque as well as teaching tap, so on and so forth. I was there for, I think, about 18 months I taught at BB's.
Right.
So, yeah, that, like, literally was my foothold for my beginning of my burlesque journey.
Okay, so you start getting the experiences there, you're hooked straight away, and you stayed there for 18 months. You start teaching tap as well. What happens after the 18-month then? Do you develop new acts in that process? Do you go on stage and do more burlesque, or was that sort of the first experience and then there was a bit of interlude in between, or were you active doing burlesque stuff?
No, as soon as I had done the first group thing, I was like, cool, I want to learn more and I want to do more, and how do I get to do a solo? I was like straight down the tunnel of burlesque. It was great. I loved everything about it. I really enjoyed that the way it was always presented to me was like, you could do anything you wanted to do. Like, right. there was no barriers. You can choose your own way of presenting what you want to present on the stage. I hadn't been given that before. I grew up learning things and doing classical dance training. And whilst you could come up with visions and this, that, the other, like doing competitions as a kid, on like a professional level, because you're competing every weekend and, you know, going up against a lot of kids. It was very structured, and, you know, you had to make sure you had this and this and this in there because, you know, you want to show off your skills that are advanced for your level and things like that. Whereas burlesque, like, you literally can create a crap character or a vibe or a theme and be who you want to be on that stage for however long your routine is. And you can take your audience on the journey that you want to take your audience on. And it's all about you and all about what you want to do with that time.
What was the first act that you remember being able to say, hey, so I've given the opportunity here to create my first act? Was it the Tinkerbell one? Or was there another act before that?
There was a lot of acts before the Tinkerbell ones.
What was the first act you were able to get your hands on, create the costume, create the story, and create the vibe?
The first solo that I ever did was a tap number, surprise, surprise, to an Andrew Sisters track called Dear Mr. Shen. And it was more dancey than it was teasy, but that was me. And I still do cram a lot of movement into a lot of my routines. But that's obviously my vibe. So so that one was a lot more tapping and a lot less teasy, but I did the whole thing from scratch. And my mom actually helped me do some of the choreo or let me bounce things off her. And I'll never forget the day where I was trying to show my mom and she still didn't know what burlesque was. She hadn't seen a show.
Oh, really?
And really wanted to come support me because she thought it was great that I was getting back into dancing again. But she didn't know what burlesque was. And it doesn't matter how you try and explain it to somebody until they see it, they don't quite get it. And, you know, mom's like a little bit prudish, but she's come around in the end. She's has had many of us having pants off parties in the backyard and stuff. So she's seen it all now. But at this very moment in time, she had no idea what was going on. And I still remember showing her this thing and I'm like, and now I don't know what to do. And she's like, we've been doing a bit of dancing here. Isn't it time to, like, I don't know, do something teasy and take something off?
Right. So she was very hands-on creatively.
Yeah. So she helped me choreograph my first solo, came, supported it, absolutely loved it. Contrary to what she thought, she was going to hate it. And yeah, that was 2015.
Wow. So 2015, you have that act. The family's been real supportive of it. They come and see your first act. You end up staying there for, what was it, 16 months, 18 months?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Right. Okay. So what happens after 18 months then? Do you decide that you start getting that entrepreneurial tick, that entrepreneurial bug going, hey, I want to do my own thing? Or
yeah, I kind of wanted to explore myself and what I was putting on the stage more. By this stage, I had started producing some shows. And I kind of, like, at the time, I wasn't quite ready to keep going on that loop of teaching a different class all the time, or, you know, more than one class each term and coming up with a new solo each term. I wasn't actually putting what I felt was enough thought into what I was presenting on stage for myself.
Okay.
So I took some time out, worked on performing in other shows and not teaching and just being creative for myself and, you know, designing and making costumes and all of that and connecting with other people, not just in a classroom or at an end of term show. Like, I started to travel a bit more. So I got gigs down in Melbourne and met some really crazy and wonderful people that I'm still very close with now. And yeah, like, it was a different experience when you started doing it that way. But I also missed teaching my tap guys. So I ended up by teaching like a random weekly tap class that was just like a catch up and jam tap class. So we do something different each week, or work on like particular tricks that the crew wanted to work on. And, you know, like, after doing that for a little, I think it was about a year or so, I missed teaching other things and I had all these ideas that I wanted to get out. And I felt like I had accomplished more in my own solo stuff and I was ready to start teaching burlesque again. So I had this crazy idea of opening a school for myself and a couple of other people that I was close to. We collaborated and opened up the Vaudeville Consortium. But yeah, like, it's been a really great experience, and something that I was so focused on was building a really great community in the school for people to enjoy, which is what I loved when I walked into my first class, was just how welcoming everybody was. And, you know, like, you didn't feel like you were stupid for asking what the fuck's a pasty or how do I stick them on or anything like that. Like, they became your burly fam. Yeah. And I really wanted the whole school to be like that, and have really started focusing on, you know, making sure that community is always there at the utmost. And, you know, hey, it's great if you want to go off and you want to do this and this and this and you're really excelling at that. And, you know, we're really happy to be a part of that. But at the end of the day, if you just want to come and be a part of a community and have fun and become more confident about yourself, then it's there for you there as well. Like, there's no pressure.
Yeah, it is. It is very much like a extended sisterhood. There is a lot of friendly people there. I know that for the time that I was seeing the shows, and I met a lot of you girls. You guys were nothing but nice and welcoming, and that's the kind of thing that really, I guess, helps people take that first initial step into doing something creative, whether it be burlesque, whether it be wrestling, whether it be something ever creative, is that they want to have that sense of family. And when they find that, and they find that, oh, it's not as daunting as what I thought it would be. Everyone here is super supportive, and it kind of makes me want to do it even more. That's when you know you're sort of into something where you go, this might be for me, because there isn't anything that I can see that's bad, because everyone here wants me to succeed just as much as they do, collectively.
Exactly.
So before I ask you about your school that you're running now, I have to take a step back here and go back to your first performance, because I've told it on different episodes of this podcast how my stage name came about, how that name was generated for me. But Scarlet Tinkabelle, how did that name come about for you? Was that something that you had created, or was that given to you, or what was the process for that?
It stemmed off a nickname from many, 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 many years ago.
Okay.
So, like, I think I was about 22, 23, somewhere around there. I was recently single. Like, I was settling down with the guy that I separated from. And I was at the bar, like the local pub, nearly every night of the week. I worked in liquor as well during the day at this particular moment in time. And so, like, I drank a lot, had really good mates at the pub, and if I knew everybody at the local. So this, like, the Boardwalk Tavern down at Hope Island on the Gold Coast. And so, like, if I didn't know someone that walked through the door, we'd end up by having a drink. We'd know each other by the end of the night. And it was just that type of pub. Like, everyone knew everyone. And, you know, I really connected with some of the older guys. We'd go drink beer out on the deck there, and they'd talk about their boats and their life experiences. And there's a really talented musician that played the piano in the front bar every Friday and Saturday, kind of like an Elton John type character. Anyway, getting to the point, we'd get blind, rotten drunk all the time, particularly on the weekends. And one night, my good mate Shorty goes, let's go have some shots. And I'm like, all right, do you want a strong or a tasty shot? I'm like, I want strong and tasty. Why the fuck do I have to choose? So they made us these green shots. Yep. We had no idea what was in them. Did the shots, and we're like, they're perfect. They really hit you in the face, though. So we dubbed them the little green fairies. Piano man comes in after his shift and comes to the bar, and we're like, you've got to try these shots. They're pretty great. And by this stage, we'd had several of these shots. Mm-hmm. So he has them, and he's like, these are like your perfect shot because you're like a little dancer. He's like, you're just like a little fairy. It's like, you're Tinkabelle. And so I got nicknamed Tink. Okay. From this drinking experience and these little green fairy shots that then became our drink of choice when we were drinking. Yeah. I haven't had one for quite a while now, but I imagine they still would plant me on the ass. Years later, when I went into the pin-up world, I needed a stage name. And I was like, oh, well, like, my nickname's been Tink for a while, like, not commonly used, but by my drinking friends. Yeah. Why don't I use that? It kind of fits. I'm little. I'm, used to be a dancer, so I guess I still kind of am in some way. But what the fuck do I use as a first name? At this stage in life, I'd only ever had black or red hair. Right. Okay. Very different. Yeah. So I went with Scarlet because it was, something that was like, had a vintage aesthetic to it, but it was kind of like a little bit raunchy. And it was also my favorite shade of red. Right. And so we just went with Scarlet, and it stuck, and chucked them together, and away we went. And it's been the name ever since. It has. But it's also why a lot of people just call me Tink, because that's been my nickname for far longer than what my stage name has been my stage name. See situations like that with those stories, it's so... I love origin stories. I think they're sometimes the most unique and creative experiences that you can sort of generate from having shots at a bar to getting Tinkabelle, because I wish my name was given as creative a process as that. My name
No, my name was not shots at a bar and having red hair as much as I wish it would be. My name was given because I did a dance off in the ring of my first ever wrestling show that my friend was debuting on. I wasn't even wrestling at that point. I just needed kids in the ring. I did a dance off. Had this big, gigantic, oversized hoodie, and if you zipped it up, it would have a monkey in a flash suit on the front and the Flash Lightning Bolt logo on the back. And I zipped it all the way up. You couldn't see my face. It was just this weird 12-year-old looking kid in this ring doing Michael Jackson's Billie Jean. And I then decided a couple of days later to go to training with my friend, and I wore the jacket, and I went in to see the owner, and my friend said, "Hi, this is my mate. He wants to sign up." And I was wearing the jacket, and I said, "Hello," like, full proud of myself. And he spins around his chair, takes his glasses off, and goes, "Oh yeah, the fucking dancer." And I went, eh. And I had my first training session, and I had to come up with a name. And he goes, "Do you have a name of what you want to be called?" And I said, "Well, Flash is something that I want to be called because I have the jumper, and he's one of my favorite heroes." And a few of the other wrestlers said, "No, we've already had a Flash down here." And I went, "Damn." And the promoter said, "What about Flash Man?" And I was like, "Okay." And he goes, "Yep, that's it. Flash Man, that's your name." And yeah, that's still my name. So not as interesting as having shots
but
with piano.
But it's still got a fun story.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's fun for people that listen to it. It wasn't so fun to be sort of completely crushed by, oh yeah, the
Neither
fucking
were the
dancer.
hangovers from the little green fairy shots, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't envy that part of your story. But, so that was how your name came about. When we get to Vaudeville Consortium, that's a name that kind of rolls off the tongue, but it is something that you go, where did that come from? So again, with the name process, where did name generator, dance school? No. Ballet session? No. Floor work? No. It's like it's an extravagant name. Was that a creative process with multiple people, or was this something that was generated from situations?
It was something that I chose for the school, and like I can't even remember. There was maybe like 3 names that I came up with, but that one was the pick for me and what I lent to the most. But I wanted something that like was a collective of teachers, because our school's structured a little bit differently in the way we admin with the teachers and how they get paid and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I didn't want it to be more about like a brand and it's all brand, and the teachers are just there as part of that brand. Mm-hmm. I want it to be a collective of people teaching and passing on their intellectual property in whatever skill set that they are trained in to share with people, like whatever their niche is, or weird and wonderful skill set. So it means like we do end up with some rotating teachers that, like someone doesn't want to learn fire 6 days a week, so I won't teach fire that often. I'll teach it, sporadically here and there. And, other teachers are much the same. Like it's not a skill set that they want to teach day in, day out, because it's not something that should be taught day in, day out, unless you're going down that professional performance line. It's not just a thing that you go and do for shits and giggles. So that was like, I wanted it to be something to do with a collective.
Okay.
And then I wanted it to be something to do with variety. Do you see where I'm going? So I then was playing with words that meant collective, or lo and behold, came up with consortium. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then vaudeville is essentially a variety. It's exactly what vaudeville means. Right. So, yeah. And I really liked how it sounded. So the Vaudeville Consortium, it sounded, something different. It wasn't just burlesque school or dance school. Yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think like the schools that were at the forefront and really peddled the early days of the ways in the areas, they're the ones that have burlesque and variety school. And it was to make them so much different from the dance schools or the this school or the that school or, aerials or pole. Like they were very, at the time, and I'm only assuming because I wasn't around during the days those names got selected, but I'm assuming that was the differential word so that, people knew what type of school they were going to.
Yeah.
Whereas, we teach all sorts of things. We've got a teacher teaching how to manipulate bubbles that you can blow at the moment. So, another creative outlet, and it's nothing to do with burlesque, but it's, a skill that you can learn. You can present it on a stage and it blends really nicely with burlesque and variety.
Yeah. Is that
So
Painproof Pixie doing the bubble?
Yeah, it is Painproof Pixie, aka Adora Bubbles when she's playing with bubbles.
Adora Bubbles, nice.
Yeah, I know. It is absolutely adorable.
Wait a minute, before I continue, there was something there that I do want to ask you about. Did you say fire?
I did say fire.
No, okay.
I can't have a tagline of Brisbane's Fiery Fairy without the fire, right?
Right, and this isn't, for people out there, this isn't, oh, I'm wearing red hair and I come out in a flame dress. No, we're talking real flames here.
Yeah, I think I skipped over that part.
Okay, so I want to dig up that part because that's not. Okay, girls, make sure you do stretches, put your shoes on, and classical music in 3, 2, 1, da-da-da-da, and tap, 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 and here comes burlesque, taking everything off. Oh, wait, now I'm interested in igniting myself. Now, where does the mind go where you're exposed to that imagery and you went, I want to do that?
So it was when I was teaching at BB's, actually. Frankie May Fallon came in and did a beginner's course in fire and learning how to eat it. I'd seen Frankie perform before, and I was very fascinated. And anyone that has seen me perform knows I really like fusing things that don't belong together. Like tap and burlesque isn't usually a thing. And I like putting things that don't necessarily belong together. Like rock and showgirls. Rock music with showgirls, like that's my jam. And so like I'd seen her perform it and I was intrigued, and it was one of those things of, hey, I'll give it a go. Didn't think that it would be a thing that I fell into a rabbit warren of, but it was an experience that I wanted to have. And I really enjoyed working with Frankie at shows and her bubbly personality. So I thought, great, I'll go and learn off Frankie. I already vibe with her. It's going to be a fun experience, even if I don't eat the fire. And like a moth to a flame, I was hooked. It took me quite a while before I put fire into an act and put it on stage. But I'm so glad that I persevered and I did. And just keep, like, even today, like, I'm still learning new things and learning how to manipulate it in a different way.
I think it was from you. I think I had heard through the grapevine, through other burlesque girls, that you had started practicing with fire. And then I remember, I think I came to your house one time and I'd met your mum, who we spoken of in this podcast, and we had the shots, the fruit tinkle shots. And I remember there was a talk there of either you had just started to or you were looking to debut a fire act. And I went, this sounds insane in the best way possible. Like, it sounds, from what you were pitching and what you were like explaining it to be, I went, because my experience of fire at that stage was, people on the beach twirling a fire stick around, and you go, yeah, it's impressive, but it's not, it wasn't what you were leading to. You were saying that's how the act started to a similar extent, but then you're like, oh, and then I light my entire arm up, and then I light my leg up, and then I swallow the flame and spit it out, and the stick catches it and it ignites again. And you go, I'm sorry, you lost me at the part where your arm is on fire. Like, what is happening here? Because this sounds like a workplace health and safety issue. Like,
I think the act that you're talking about is my dragon. Right. I think I've had a couple of throwaway ones in there before, but yeah, like my fourth solid fire act that I offer.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I debuted. When did I debut that? For Creaturelesque, Curves and Claws. Okay. But I'd been working on it for a while. And I'd been working on different apparatuses that I could put into a burlesque number rather than just having the one of them. But yeah, like, it was something that I was like, instead of looking at it as I'm going to go out there and have my moment with the flame, because performing with fire is a little bit different. I feel like you're not as focused on connecting with the audience. It sounds really weird. But you're not as focused on connecting with the audience because you have to keep your eyes and wits about the flame for obvious reasons. It's dangerous. But I feel like the audience gets drawn into your connection with the flame.
It is one of those acts that are kind of okay to have that invisible glass wall between, because it is very much a performance act in the sense of much like Cirque du Soleil and much like a gymnastic routine or even a karate demonstration where the act is in solely the performance because you're demonstrating an additional physical skill to what's happening. And the story isn't so much about what the character was going through in that sense. It is very much the character's evolution in that performance is sort of evolving from arguably simplistic flame tricks, if any, but simplistic flame tricks at the beginning to then full bore dragon-esque like flame expulsions and routines towards the end, where it's like the flame is sort of the evolution. You're not so much the star as much as the flame is. The flame is sort of like leading you, and you're evolving to match the flame. I mean, that's how at least I watch it as a fan. I go, yeah, I'm kind of glad she's not interacting with that huge fire stick right now. I'm happy. I'm happy in the third row. I don't want to be any closer than right this. I'm feeling the heat. Can't imagine what it's being like up there doing that kind of stuff. But is that kind of the vibe? Is that kind of the vibe where the flame is the main star?
I don't know that it's the main star. I think it's like it's the interaction between you and the fire that's the main star. Like it's not like, yeah, it's impressive and it's fire and what you're doing with it is outrageous and scary and dangerous. Yeah, that's so true. But I think the niche hold with fire, and when I watch other fire performers and train with them, is like just watching how a person manipulates and interacts with that flame and how they can, control it to a certain point, but also go with it. Like, I think it's really this love that you are getting drawn into watching between the flame keeper and the flame itself. And that connection is what I dig. Like, that's what I want to watch. That's what I end up by falling into, is this connection with this flame on a stage.
Yeah. And this may be a bit of a deep dive here, but was there ever a point when you were coming up through the ranks of doing your training in various dance-related activities and performances and producing and starting of schools, was there ever a time for you in your personal life where you just went, I don't think I'm ever going to dance again? Like you were just completely in a bad place, you just shut everything off and you went, no, I never want to touch a pair of shoes, I never want to go on stage, get it out of my life. Was there ever a time for that where it just went completely downhill to the point that you recovered? And you are a star now, so this is definitely a backtracking here. But was there ever a time for you that sort of went that you were really second guessing whether or not you wanted to ever do anything dance related again because of where life was leading you?
I think there was times where I pulled back and went, that's not what I need to be doing right at this very minute. But it was never I'm not doing dancing because I just never want to do it again. There was never that moment that happened for me. It was always I need to, put my focus over here for a little while. So that's just going to have a little rest over there. Like there was never a moment in any of the times that I stopped and then picked it back up in a different sense that I was like, I'm never getting on a stage again.
Right. Okay. So in some weird way, even though where situations in your life may or may not have been turning out the best, you always had that guiding light or that crutch of dancing and performing. Like you knew that, if life's shitty, I can always rely on doing dance and performing.
Definitely.
Yeah. See, that's a real interesting perspective because I know that sometimes when performers, and you and I would have read about it, and I'm sure people out there listening would have heard about it, where sometimes performers just go completely off the rails and they just you don't ever see them in whatever field that they were doing. They just seemingly just go, I'm over it, I'm out, I'm done. And it's not till many years later where they come back and you go, yeah, this is the person I remember, and this is their home, this is where they should be. So it's nice to know that someone of your stature and caliber and talent has been able to not be persuaded by life's difficult journeys, but to always know that, hey, if life's crappy, well, I can just go and escape to dance, or I know I have a show coming up, or I can just forget about things when I've got this going on, and you don't let it affect you as much as, say, the opposite way around.
Yeah, I think a lot of that also stems on like why you're dancing or doing something creative in the first place. If you're doing it because you feel like you have to fit in or conform or whatever, then you're doing it for the wrong reason.
Right.
And I feel like, as much as I dislike saying this, that like there's kids that just get shoved into dancing and they're like, they'll enjoy it later, they'll thank me for it later. And that kid never likes dancing. They want to go and play soccer or, you know, go do gymnastics or swimming or something that isn't that. Or maybe they don't want to do any of that at all. And that's okay too. But they're going to resent it. They're not going to like it. Yeah, they might get some good values out of it, better posture, this, that, the other. But they're the type of people that resent it because they're more being forced to be there or are there because they feel like they have to be there. Whereas, like, I'm an adult, I'm choosing to do this for shits and giggles because I enjoy doing it and I enjoy sharing that stuff with other people and watching them enjoy doing it. Like, there is nothing more rewarding for me than helping someone find and navigate their own creative direction and putting that on stage and getting to share it with someone else. Like, that is the thing I love living for. Helping them and watching them click and grow, and also getting to share my stuff with them too. But like teaching wise, and you know, the reasoning of why you're in a class or why you're learning and doing the thing, that is what it's all about for me.
Yeah. Teaching, much like performing, has that unique bottled experience where you go, oh man, I wish you could experience the sensation that I'm getting teaching you or I'm getting performing. Like you wish you could share that with people that haven't yet experienced it or may not be a part of that industry to go, this is what it's like. A question that I really would like to ask you, and again, this isn't what I like to call a burial. You don't have to name names or go after anyone here. Yeah. The creative industries sometimes have their absolute peaks and they sometimes have their absolute trash. Being in the creative field that you're in now and having the experiences you've had, not only in dance, but in the burlesque community, what is one thing in the industry where you went, I just wish this wasn't a thing? Like, if there was one thing you could eliminate from the industry so that it just didn't exist, what would it be to help make it better?
I think social media playing as big a part as what it does in the creative outlets is a thing that, as much as like we need it because that's our platform of communication in 2020.
Yeah.
But it also creates these witch hunt moments of he said, she said, why is this a thing? And I really hate that. I hate that, you know, like there's a platform that allows us to see this rabbit warren of cesspool nastiness happen every now and again. And it's not all the time, and it happens in every type of thing, like not even just creative stuff, but it allows so much cesspoolness as well as good for marketing and branding and getting connectivity with people that aren't in your immediate bubble. But it has that one side effect that can also happen, and it's quite horrible to watch.
Yeah, and I agree, because it is that one weird thing where creative industries rely so heavily, just like you said, rely so heavily on social media now, not only to connect with their audience in terms of like from a character perspective, but also from a promotional aspect, you know, creating the events, creating the ads, sharing the posters, getting people involved, putting up ticket links, everything that you need to do in order to promote and share those shows. The other side of the coin is, yeah, you do have those moments where people in the industry might be bickering with each other. Social media, you can never hear people's words or how they phrase things or the tone
or emotion, or maybe you can see an emotion and it's not the right one that they should be portraying, perhaps. But yeah, like it takes that personalization out of that communication.
Yeah, I wish that wasn't a thing in entertainment, especially those kinds of statuses and those kinds of situations that evolve out of it. And then I think the thing that makes it even worse than that is the process of screenshotting. Look what so-and-so said, look what so-and-so said. And it's
yes, and it just creates this little cesspool of
it's almost like putting up a wanted poster like, it's a witch burner. And you're like, I haven't done anything wrong. Look, she's melting in the sun. And it's like, yeah, it's 40 degrees.
I mean, fortunately, it doesn't seem to happen too much. I don't want to say that it's like this big thing that happens all the time in burlesque or creative industries, but it is a thing that does happen from time to time.
When those scenarios happen, when there is that sort of witch hunt, those screenshots and those moments where everyone argues, it's like, oh, can this just not be a thing? Can we just go back to dancing and just performing, please? Because
let's go back to yesterday when that wasn't known about and that didn't happen.
And
it just goes away and doesn't happen.
Yeah, and the main thing should always be, in any terms of performance, whether you're an A+ rock band that's lasted 30 years, or whether you're on the stage as a big-time burlesque performer, whatever your outlet, whatever your platform is, the main thing that should be the biggest concern is those people that come in with their money or their ticket in their hand wanting to see a show. They don't give a shit about the fights backstage. They don't want to know about the fights backstage. They're here to support. They're here to support the industry, and ergo, they're here to support you being a part of said industry. And I think that's the part that people forget about when these situations happen. They get so involved in that, and they go, "Oh yeah, that's right. There's people attending," and it almost, again, like we've been saying this whole time, it almost brings up that glass wall where you sort of disconnect because you're so involved with, I guess, the he said, she said backstage, or the he said, she said online, that you kind of forget, oh, I've got a show to do. I totally would agree that in terms of entertainment, if that wasn't a thing, oh man, just be sunny days and you could just get back to entertaining people.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Tink, I really want to thank you for you to come on here, feel comfortable to share your story, to share your journey from how the 2-year-old ballet girl becomes this shot-taking, fire-twirling, tattooed Tinkerbelle that's lighting up the stage. No pun intended. It's been a pleasure to know you, and I'm very, knowing that the journey that you have, I'm very proud to hear of all your successes and accomplishment. You're doing us proud.
Aw, thank you.
Goodbye. No. But hey, before we go,
goodbye.
Yeah. Before we go though, I have to do the segments that we always do on this podcast, the first of which being a deep dive. Now, I'm going to ask you a selection of questions here that only you yourself can give your own unique perspective and answer on. So you ready for a deep dive?
Fire away.
What was a turning point in your life? How did it affect you? And if it was bad, how did you overcome it?
Probably coming out of a serious relationship at 22.
Okay.
I had no idea who the fuck I was.
Was that because they were changing your image, or you just were so...
Not so much. I just hadn't lived my own life. So I didn't from 17 to 22, I was in what I thought was what you did. So, I went to work, I had a boyfriend, I went home, we did the things together. We had 2 groups of friends that we saw collectively, and then that was it. And I didn't really have much for myself. Not that it was anything bad, but the person that I am now compared to back then are 2 completely different people. And I'm so glad that, and this isn't anything mean, we separated because it didn't work. Nothing against him, but I'm so glad that happened when it did, because it really allowed me the next decade to find who I was as a person and what I wanted to do with my life and own it for myself.
What would you say to yourself if you were just starting out now?
Do the things, go learn all of the things and do all of the things, and then decide what you actually want to put on the stage, and don't just put 20 bazillion things on the stage all at once. Find what you want to do and do that one well, and then do the next one. I think having 20,000 projects on the go at the same time is a little bit ambitious for a newbie. Fuck, I still do it now and I still regret it. But yeah, learn all the things, but present what you want to specialize in, or one thing at a time, one project at a time.
Do you have a ritual, or do you have a preparation? How do you psych yourself up before going on stage? What makes you transition from regular everyday Tink to Scarlet Tinkabelle? How do you do that switch?
Mine is when I'm putting my makeup on, and I think a lot of performers can relate to that, is, you go into a change room, or you go into the bathroom, or wherever you are, some random fucking toilet out the back of nowhere, and you're putting your face on. That's really an important part for me anyway. It's a really important part of creating your character that you're putting on stage for the show that night.
You've given a lot of advice throughout the years, both as a teacher, as part of that sisterhood, as a fellow performer, and as a friend. But what is the best advice that you have ever received?
If it doesn't make you happy, then don't do it. It works for everything, I swear. There's things that you get shitty about and you get frustrated about, right? And then you sit there and you're like, is it something that makes me happy? No. Okay, cool. Get rid of it. Is it something that makes me happy? Yes. Okay, stick the fuck out with it. Have a little break. Go back to it and it'll be fine. I get frustrated with things quite easily. I'm not the most patient person in the world. But yeah, at the end of the day, you make that decision of whether the frustration and the hardness of learning something or doing something is worthwhile. Is it going to make you happy, or is it not going to make you happy? If it's not, then do you really need it?
How do you, of all the trials and tribulations that you've gone through, both professionally and personally, how do you define success?
For me personally, I want to feel a sense of accomplishment of what I put on a stage or what I've created, not even just on a stage. It could be the community that I'm creating with the school. So I think, like, for me, success is achieving what I've set out to achieve.
So going out there and creating something and making sure it's executed and done?
That makes much more sense than my...
Okay. Yeah, I get what you're talking about. I know what
you've had a lot of words from me.
Yeah. I got what you mean. I picked it up and I ran with it. I know what you mean.
Thinking of the thing, doing the thing, and doing the thing, and doing it well. There you go.
Oh, that's much more clearer. All right, this is the part of the podcast now which I like to call the Lipton Six. This is in tribute of James Lipton. He was an American writer, lyricist, actor, and the dean of the Actors Studio Drama School at Pace University in New York City, where he hosted and ran his TV show Inside the Actors Studio from 1994 to 2018. So, in honor and tribute of him, I'm going to ask you his famous 6 questions that he would ask all his guests before wrapping up his interview. What is your favorite word?
Very tastical.
What turns you on? Now, it can be in the way that you're thinking of, or it can be in a creative or an energetic aspect where you go, yes, this is awesome. I'm hyped up. I'm excited.
That moment that you nail something that you've been working for a while. You know, when it just clicks and it finally sinks in and it happens and you're like, I can't see why I couldn't get that before, but now I can. You can get it every time. That.
What sound or noise do you love?
I love the sound of, it's kind of an annoying sound too, but I actually love the sound of my 2 little dogs when they whine or whimper from the other side of the door when I get home, because I know they're happy to see me.
Yeah.
They've missed me. They've really missed me.
You love me. You really love me.
It's unconditional.
What is your favorite curse word?
Fuck.
Okay. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt? So you're not doing real estate, you're not doing burlesque, you're not doing dancing. What would you like to attempt?
There's not much call for it these days, but I've always been a bit of a sciencey type.
Okay.
And I'd love to get into like compound chemistry.
Right. And now, for those playing the home game, what is compound chemistry?
So it's like the people that make the specialized prescriptions. So like if you've got allergies and things like that, they'll take your prescription and make it in a way that you can still take the active ingredients that you need to be able to take. But it might be in like, different capsules, or the binding agent's different to something that's like over the shelf Nurofen type scenario. I've always loved chemistry and science. Growing up through high school, I had envisaged that I would go to uni and become some form of a doctor or pharmacist or something. And I fell into real estate instead. So I guess it's just one of those things that I guess if I was back then and maybe wasn't so into my creative side and didn't fall into this little real estate rabbit warren, then I may have gone down that avenue, and that still interests me.
Scarlet Tink, the professor, would be
Professor Tinkabelle.
PhD. That'd be interesting.
So good. Maybe I am interested.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I know what he'd probably say. You're in the wrong fucking place. Get down there. maybe like a here's your room of activities with all my fiery treats and all the bad things that I can get up to. I don't really know.
All right, so before we ride off into the sunset, we're going to hit that nice overdrive. We're going to slam on that pedal Vin Diesel style. We're going to drive towards that finish line. I'm going to hit you now with what I like to call the final 4 before we start plugging all your social medias where people can get in contact with you. So first of the final 4, was there ever a point where you thought, hey, I don't know about this. I don't think this is going to work. This whole thing might not be for me.
Every time that I eat something with cream in it.
Okay, that's different to what I've had on here.
Well, I'm lactose intolerant, so I still eat it or drink it or whatever. But yeah, it doesn't always end out that great.
Say no more.
Excellent.
I'm getting your drift. I'm getting your drift. Say no more. Have you ever stopped and thought, man, how the hell did I get here?
Oh, because Google Maps has me covered these days. It doesn't matter where I end up; it always manages to get me home. But yeah, no, I had that experience probably in the biggest way that I've had it when I went to Perth Fringe Festival for the first time. So 2019 Perth Fringe, after being asked to do some backup fire stuff for Aurora Galore in her Glamorous Weirdos tour. I've idolized Aurora Galore for being the eccentric weirdo and fire manipulator that she is in the burlesque world for a number of years, probably even before I was in burlesque, because she was just a groovy babe that I followed on Instagram and wanted to know more about. And I got to work alongside her. And I remember performing on a packed out stage at the Teatro right alongside her, taking a bow going, yeah, this is fucking rad. How the fuck am I here?
Going back to those first moments, did you ever think that this is where you would be? Like, this is where you're at now with your character, having all these experiences, having all these journeys. Did you ever stop and think at any time this is where you would be?
Not at all.
Yeah?
Not at all. I walked into each and every one of those experiences just taking it with a grain of salt and just thinking, well, this is an experience I'm going to have today. I don't know whether I'm going to like it or whether I'm not. Mm-hmm. And, you know, every time I go and do something new, I approach it with the same thing. And, you know, a lot of things I love doing, so I learn a lot of things.
Currently, what is your proudest moment or achievement?
I think was actually taking a show to Perth Fringe.
Right.
I've always wanted to, well, two reasons. I've never produced at a Fringe festival before. So it was, you know, a big performer life bucket list tick. Mm-hmm. But it was also something that was a collaboration that I had wanted to do for quite some time. I really wanted to play on the femme representation within the sideshow community and being able to collate performers that really represent that in a strong way and put them in a festival on a stage and have a really good tour there. It was just really overwhelmingly heartwarming.
You're a social media fairy. Where can people get in touch with you?
They can get me on Instagram or Facebook at Scarlet Tinkabelle. Can grab me on email with that at live.com.au. And our school's called the Vaudeville Consortium, which you also can find us on Instagram and Facebook. Speaking
of connecting, it's been great to connect with you again. I really appreciate you taking the time out of the hectic, crazy, busy schedule that I know that burlesque does provide. Even at the calmest of times, it still gets a bit hectic. So I appreciate the time you put aside for me to come on here today to speak to me and one day have a fruit tinkle shot again. I'm not going to let it go.
Yes, fruit tinkles.
All right, Scarlet Tinkabelle, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming aboard.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I wish you all the best.
You too, Mania. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, there you have it, folks. That was Scarlet Tinkabelle. Thank you very much, Scarlet, again for coming aboard LMBC Podcast. And hey, if you haven't done so already, please follow Little Man Big Conversations on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll catch you next week.